welcome to our photo critique event that we've got going with Cliff Mautner. Hopefully you guys submitted a photo ahead of time. We had a Google form to fill out with all your info. And Cliff will be he's going to be looking at those photos for the first time. He hasn't seen them ahead of time. So we will have some guidance there, and he will be going over those. Hopefully all of the metadata is in the photos as well. And
not all of them, Pete, but some.
Not all of them.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll be going over that as well. So he'll give some insight into, the positives and negatives of all of that as well. And that said, he will be choosing a winner, so to speak, the photo that he thinks is the best. And we've got two prizes here. I'm going to be giving away an Extreme Portable Pro SSD. This guy is 2,000 megabytes read-write speeds, 1 terabyte, USB-C connection, 3-meter drop protection. This is great for an editing scratch disk or for just transporting files. Cliff's got one right there that he's showing you as well. And then the other, so that's going to go to the winner, because I think that you guys will love this one for just a scratch disk prize. And then for all of you in attendance, I will be choosing one person at the end, and that person will get our Western Digital My Passport Wireless SSD. This guy is an SSD drive that's meant for backing up your memory cards when you're out and about in the field. So it's just a small little like 4x4 by 1 inch drive, SSD inside. You put your memory card into this card slot in the side. It's an SD card slot. You push a button, backs up the full contents to the card, or you can connect a card reader to it to back up any other type of memory cards that you got as well. And then, like I said, it's an SSD inside, so your data is safe and secure while you're out and about in the field. So that's a great product, and I'm going to put some more information about those into the chat when Cliff gets started. So before we start, I love to see where everybody's from, because obviously this is virtual. So throw your welcome message and where you're zooming in from, because I love to see. I know Chris comes to all of our events now pretty much. And he comes from Uganda. So I don't know if anybody ever is further away from that. But we love to see the range of locations for everybody.
I'm in Jersey, man. Does that count?
All right. Somebody's guy is in Brooklyn. I'm in Manhattan right now, so that's nice. All right. So without further ado, Cliff, I'd like to take it away. I'd like to give it over to you. Share your screen, show the photos, and talk about the good and the bad.
Awesome.
The good and the needs improvement, I should say.
So basically what I want to talk about first, Pete, is, whenever I do critiques, I've been judging it at WPPI and other contests from around the world. And the way the genesis of this little thing here is Pete and I, and really we were discussing topics for content for Samy's and some of the things that I really enjoy doing. And some of the most popular parts of my workshop has been the critique portion. Tuesday, we shoot all day. Wednesday, we shoot all day. And then Thursday, if anybody from my workshops is listening here, and I by the way, shameless plug, I do intend on announcing one workshop for the fall live and in person in my studio here outside of Philadelphia. For the first time since 2019, I do want to announce one. But anyway, that's not tonight. Thursday morning, we do critiques. And it is a very popular part of the workshop. And it's a little bit time consuming going through 20 different sets of images, but it's really worth it. And I wanted to see their growth, their personal growth as photographers. And they showed me images from their past, and then they showed me images from the workshop. And it has a lot to do with how people use light. What I'm going to be not judging, critiquing today is impact. I'm going to look at composition, maybe comment on that, but I'm also going to comment on post-production if it's good or if it's poor and needs improvement. So what I really want to do, the word critique, it should be constructive critique. This shouldn't be, oh my God, this is lame or this is that, or, I only looked very, very briefly at some of these. And some of them I know could use improvement, and some of them are pretty outstanding. So I'm going to get right to it, but I wanted to mention, again, what I'm looking for. Impact is number one, composition, and then a little bit of post. So I'm going to share my screen.
Cliff, we have somebody in the audience who recently saw you at the Bristol Photographers Club. I don't know the details of that,
Yes.
but
Awesome.
I'm guessing that was a recent event that you did.
Yes, it was. And I want to thank them for attending. That was my first in-person anything in quite a while, and it was
Okay.
really cool. So I'm trying to minimize this here. There we go. All right. I can't see anything or anyone right now. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm critiquing, I critique in Photo Mechanic. Photo Mechanic, if anybody doesn't have Photo Mechanic out there, it is the single best tool for culling. Okay. I can dump a boatload of raw files in Photo Mechanic. I'm talking about 7,000, like I shot this last weekend. I shot a wedding in Cleveland. I'm going to share a couple of these images. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to go over a couple of my images first that I just shot to basically say, hey, here's a couple of things I like, and here's what I could do better, to let you guys understand that everything can be improved. All right. So I posted this one on Instagram. And the great thing about Photo Mechanic, by the way, is the fact that all of our metadata, and Pete, you can see my cursor, correct? Or can you not?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. That is huge. Okay. Because over here in this portion, there's a box that shows you all the metadata. And that's really important for critiquing, so that if there's images that are blurred, or if there's maybe some chromatic aberration, or if there's distortion, I can say, hey, you might want, maybe you don't want to shoot that tight close up with a 14mm lens to make that woman's nose look so big. But this is an image I posted on Instagram just the other day. I like this image. I like the way I cropped it. This was one of my favorite ones. And it was processed by me, not my studio manager. She's a lot better than I am. But my goal here was to just focus on the lips and some of the details. So I got the henna very sharp. I got some of the jewels very sharp. And I deliberately cropped down below the eyes so I could really get details of the color of those lips and really show the details of a South Asian wedding. So here we are. Some of these might not be in particular order, but this is right before a ceremony, after what's called the barat. They are brought over to a little area, and the bride's parents basically welcome him into the family. And one of the highlights of this particular element of the ceremony is they basically grab his nose. And it is really a fun moment. I use my 16-35 on my Z6 II here. And, what do I like about it? I like the emotions. I like what's going on the right. I like all the expressions. But honestly, it was, kind of a gray kind of day. And I don't love that the sky is completely washed out. There's nothing that I can do about that whatsoever. I also think that I probably have a little bit too much sky here, a little bit too much room at the top. And that's probably a mistake that I could improve upon. Here we are. We had just seconds, and some of you wedding photographers, you understand that sometimes you literally just have seconds. Maybe I only had about 5 minutes to shoot some portraits here. I'm probably going to get rid of this red spot here. I don't know exactly what that's from, but I wanted to get rid of all of the distracting elements from this photograph. So I went all the way down to 1.8, very low ISO, all the way down to 1.8, very fast shutter speed, so I can get a nice shallow depth of field. But what I did do right here, when I have some nice backlight going on, I put them in a portion of the frame where I really allowed for some, just some space here. And, I don't think things need to be smack dab in the middle. Once again, just a little bit of an overbright sky. There's nothing I can do with this. So when you're dealing with this situation, it was just extremely important for me to get all of these faces properly exposed. And by the way, these are unprocessed raw files. I have not touched this wedding yet because this wedding took place this past Saturday. So, nice action, nice colors, very good exposure on the faces, maybe, I'll probably wind up cropping this just a hair, maybe from this side, and bring this down just a little bit so I can get a little bit less sky. This one I wanted to show mainly because I think it was a little careless on my part, because I think that there's a little bit too much headroom up here. You might say, what the hell is he talking about? Yes, I'm being a little bit picky, but I don't think it's terribly picky. Whereas if you take a look here, I have the crop marks in there, and I think that was something enormously important, enormously important.
I forgot to mention, Cliff, one thing as well for all of you guys watching. If you have questions or comments or things that you want to ask, I'll be watching everything in the chat, and I'll be talking to Cliff throughout this, so I can ask your questions as well. For, you know, simplicity reasons, I'm not allowing anybody to unmute themselves to ask questions, but if you have anything, feel free to throw it into the chat.
Thanks, Pete. And yeah, go ahead and take questions. You're not interrupting. You can go ahead and I won't lose my train of thought. So, you know, in Photo Mechanic, I have this little crop tool here. And again, I know that this seems a little bit nitpicky, but this is a little bit of a mistake on my part. And I do think I could have, you know, come down a little bit. I pride myself on not cropping afterwards, and I generally like to crop in camera. But, you know, this was a detail shot of her putting her bangles on. You know, and I had a little too much headspace there. One of the things here, I kept trying to avoid this line on top of her head during the toasts. There was nothing I could do about it whatsoever. So it's there, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do. It's not a clean background. I've got the lights from this chandelier from the decor sticking there. Again, nothing I could possibly do. This is going to be warmed up later on. It's a little bit cold, a little blue, if you will. But this was just a nice moment between mom and the bride. I was focused right on the eyelashes there. And again, just a nice moment with a little bit of window light. I'm going to come back to these later. I'm going to get to some of your images right now. And I'm going to start here. So obviously, this is a fairly recent wedding because of the masks. That's going to date everything moving towards the future. If we see weddings from 2020, early 2021, and we see masks and whatnot, we're going to know when they were taken. So right off the bat, I see lovely impact from this image. There's beautiful emotion taking place here. And you know, this would be considered photojournalism. The only thing that I would say that is, well, it's distracting, is this little pole sticking out of our bride's head. You know, if this is a real photojournalistic moment and it's something that you really feel strongly about not manipulating, then you don't have to take it out. Otherwise, I would go ahead and remove this a little bit, and because it is a little bit of a distraction. The processing, I do think that it is a little bit too contrasty. I think it has a little too much punch. I think the blacks are a little clogged up. And I'd like to see, you know, a little bit of a softer black and white and not so harsh and contrasty. Otherwise, it is a really lovely emotional moment of this ceremony. And I applaud whoever, and what I generally will say is the maker. That's the term that we use when we're judging prints in competition. I applaud the maker for the anticipation of the emotion. Here's a really lovely image of you know, a couple in sort of this field here with these horses. So here's a few things that are very well done. The exposure is pretty spot on. I would like to see the sky brought down a little bit, but I'm also looking at the fact that, you know, the shutter speed is maxed out at 250. Maybe you could have gone high-speed sync, or maybe lowered the ISO and increased the power of the flash so that you can bring the sky down. What do I mean by that? If we underexpose the sky just a little bit more in this image, you would have all of these wonderful colors just pop even more than they are right now. The only other thing that I would say is there's a little bit too much foreground, in my opinion. And also, I'm not sure if we need a smack dab in the center composition in some cases. But here, I think it works. I might, if you will, and if you'll forgive me here, I might do something like this. I think this right here is your image. I don't think we need all of that other space. And I don't know if, whoops. So that's, I don't know if we can, I don't know. I don't know photo mechanic enough to completely obliterate the rest of it, but you guys get the idea. I think this is your image, and I think it's lovely. What I would like to see, and I'm going to probably say this a few more times, is gesture, more gesture coming from this bride and groom. We have a nice photo in a nice field with lovely horses in a beautiful sunset situation, but they're not doing a whole hell of a lot. And rather than him just sitting there with his hands in his pocket, maybe, and this is just hypothesizing, maybe if he was behind her and his arms were around her and he's saying something in her ear and they're having a laugh instead of such a static pose. That's how I would critique this particular image. This is just beautiful raw emotion. There's nothing that I can really say to improve a whole lot here. I think this is, a touching, wonderful, warm moment. Whenever I see emotion like this, I generally don't go into a song and dance about how to improve this, how to improve that. Sometimes, I'll share this with you. One of my mentors, his name is Larry Price. He's a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner. And I knew him from the Philadelphia Inquirer. He worked there a few years. And he is just amazing, and he's still amazing. One of the things he said to me was, the number 1 rule of photojournalism is to get the picture. I said, well, Larry, what's the number 2 rule? He said, get a better picture. So the only thing I would say here is you got the moment, maybe you got a better moment with better composition. And it's almost as if he's just kind of, well, maybe it's a little too tight. I'd like to see a little bit more of what's going on. Maybe put this image into context a little bit more. That's the only critique I would have about that image. This is definitely one where I would say that a smack dab in the middle composition might not be the best idea for this. I would probably think about something like this, maybe. Have this come up a little bit. And I don't think we need all of that other space. I think that's your image right there. Otherwise, I think there's some nice light on the subject. It's not direct flash or anything. Nice fill. I wish the metadata here wasn't stripped. I might want to use a more shallow depth of field, okay, so that the background is not so distracting. But otherwise, I do like the colors here, and this is kind of a pretty image. So I think this is well done. This is, a very nice image here. Nice action. I do almost wish that the angle of view, and by the way, every single thing that I say here is an opinion. It's not right. It's not wrong. There's no gospel. I'm not speaking from the mountaintop. This is an opinion that I am pulling out of my ass. You might say, this guy's full of crap, and I'm okay with that. I've never seen these images before, but my first impression of this image is, I want to know more. I want to know more. And that means it's a good image because I do want to know more. I would almost like to see a lower angle with the photographer instead of shooting down at him to perhaps give this image some context, to see where this child is playing with these things, and so that I could get a little bit better understanding of what's happening here. I like the little triangle going on here. I think that's really strong. The only other thing that I would say is this black and white, as opposed to the other one we saw a few frames ago, needs a little bit more punch. There's no blacks. It's very gray. Need a little bit more, make the blacks a little bit blacker. A little more contrast in this, but otherwise I think it's, kind of a nice image. I wish the metadata wasn't stripped. So I like this picture. I think this is a really nice portrait or headshot or whatever it might be. It's taken with a 80 millimeter lens, and I think that's definitely a lens to use for portraiture. Just my impression here that it's the image is a little on the cyan side. It's a little blue. Maybe that was the intent. Very, very nicely lit, very nicely posed. I think this girl would be very, very pleased with this headshot. I like this little bit of separation going on with this light here. This is a really solid, professional looking portrait, and there's not a whole lot more that I can say about that. I think this is strong. Very, really beautiful, vivid colors going on here. I don't know if she's talking on a phone, which is, I guess, what she's doing. Lovely expression, beautiful lighting. This is really cool. I like the use of the blue background with, just the skin tones are spot on. You notice too that she's not smack dab in the center of the frame. The frame is being filled, but comfortably so. And nice gesture. I talked about gesture before. I don't know. It's just a really, really nice, strong portrait. Very well done. Beautifully lit, by the way. My initial response is almost, forgive me if this wasn't the intent. It's almost a little uneasy, a little creepy, a little, this is very, very intense is the word. I like this portrait because it evokes something in me. And I think that's also critical for any type of portrait or any image, really. This definitely evokes something, whether it's, uneasiness or, is the child upset? Is the child feeling a certain way? The only thing that I would say, 70 millimeters. To me, this is no man's land. And again, opinion. If this was an environmental portrait and you had pulled back further away to place this subject in an environment somewhere, there's nothing wrong with 70 millimeters. But I will beg people out there to stop shooting close-up portraits of any human being with a 24-70. And that is probably what was shot here. 70 just doesn't cut it. It distorts the face. It's no man's land. If you're not compressing the facial features, there's nothing here that really is flattering this subject. Maybe that's why I get this uneasy feeling. Maybe it's the distortion in the face a little bit that makes me a little bit uneasy. Now, here's what this person did right. I think their intent was to give this feeling. I like the side light. I think it evokes emotion. There's a lot of things right with this as well. So if the intent was to get such extreme side light as to do sort of a split tone here, I think they've succeeded well. In the future, maybe use a longer lens, and I think you might like the results a little bit more. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm going to say nice catch with regard to, a cake cutting at a wedding. And, the only other thing that I would say is it's completely out of focus. There's nothing in this frame at all that is in focus. There's no point within the frame that is in focus. The closest point is probably right over here. It's not shutter speed, or maybe, I don't think it is. It's 3/20th. It should have probably gotten things kind of sharp. So I don't think that's it. But that said, the attempt was there. I think this person, this is kind of a just miss for me. I think the composition can be improved by taking the frame and moving it left so that you can get the bride's face. But again, nice grab with the action, but try to get the focus a little bit more solid next time. Very cool. Intent, beautifully lit, lovely use of backlight. Lovely use of front light. You know, this is really a solid image. This is really sound. You know, I'm looking here at 50 millimeters, maybe add a little bit more impact with a little longer lens. You might, with a longer lens, you might be able to have the snowiness here. You'll compress all that and add more impact that way as well. That said, you know, good use of the strobes, good use of the light, skin tones are spot on. You know, really nice image here. And, you know, there's not a whole lot of negatives here. This is just a well done portrait. You know, smack in the middle. Not sure if it works for me with regard to the composition itself. You know, also, you know, a 35 millimeter lens, very close to a face. There's a little bit of distortion going on there. You know, I don't really think we need a whole lot of that headspace up there. So perhaps the photograph would sort of be here instead. You know, just one man's opinion. And then, you know, post-production, you know, it's a little bit washed out, you know, a little bit of burning and dodging, a little bit of vignetting perhaps, and you might have more of a solid image. Be careful where you place your subjects with regard to the light. There's a, you know, this hot spot right here is a little bit distracting. So the light is obviously coming from that direction. What you might want to do, even if it's, let's see, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon in March, you know, so the light is probably, you know, coming from this direction. Turn your subjects around and have your subjects back towards the light. Put your subject between you and the sun, use a little bit of light, fill their faces, and I think you would improve on this quite a bit, and you won't have this tremendous hot spot on the side of his face. And again, I'm not trying to offend people. I'm trying to help improve their photography. So there could be some people out there, what? I like this picture. What does he know? The answer is nothing. It's just an opinion, just throwing it out there. All right. But, you know, it's not like you can throw eggs in bottles. I'm here in my studio by myself. So proverbial, you can send virtual eggs in bottles my way. You know, wow. You know, I wish the metadata was here so I could see what's going on. This is a portrait with intent. This is beautifully executed, beautifully lit, beautifully processed. I want everyone to take a look at the overall gradation and tonality of this image. Look at how the black and white is achieved here. Look at how there is detail in the shadows and there is detail in the highlights. And, you know, while I would say that there's, you know, it's almost a little bit over processed, only a little. I really love this image. It's got a little bit of an HDR look to it, but I'll tell you what, this is wonderful. This is a powerful portrait. You can see the life of this man. I love the detail in the hands there. I mean, really cool. The addition of the pickaxe here gives it context. That's a cool portrait. What does this guy do? Well, we can see what he does. Look how this is executed. I don't know. This is really well done. The gesture here, just his look has gesture, if that makes any sense to anyone. This is really cool. Love it. How are we doing on questions, Pete? Anything so far?
We are light on the questions.
No problem.
One person wanted to know a little bit on what makes Photo Mechanic, in your opinion, better than Lightroom, Bridge, and others and whatnot. Lightroom,
there's a delay. Bridge, there's a delay. I can load in 7,000 raw files into Photo Mechanic, and I can begin my culling instantaneously. By the way, I get nothing from Photo Mechanic, zero. I paid for it just like everybody else. It is an absolutely outstanding program. Really, really good. This one here, you know, whoever made this image took a chance. They weren't down on the floor here, okay? You know, they took a chance on this. You know, bouquet tosses, we see them, they're a dime a dozen, but this is really good. This is a really well executed one. They anticipated, they reacted, they lit it well. I would love to see this area here burned down just a little bit and this area here brought up just a little bit. This is really pretty darn cool. And I think this is quite well done. Okay. Nicely done. This is a nice portrait of these folks. I'm not sure if we need all of this headspace up here, but I think this is a nice environmental portrait. It's a 50mm lens, and I don't really have a problem with that here because it does give context. You know, the only thing I would say, if you're gonna, you know, light something like this, you might want to get the light off camera and off the camera's plane, you know, a little bit more to the side so that you give a little bit of dimension to the light, to the fill flash. But otherwise, I think this is really sound, really solid. Be careful when you chop off hands, okay? Down here, I think that's a little bit distracting. I'm being really nitpicky, but I do think that's, you know, that is definitely a factor. Okay, a little birthday party here. You know, I think everyone could be conscious and everyone can improve their photography by getting the flash off the camera. The other thing that I would say, depending upon what kind of camera was used, and I can't really tell here, I'm just throwing this out there, but what if you just use the candlelight? What if you just use the candlelight? Wouldn't that have made this image a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more moody, a little bit more interesting? The sensors that we have on cameras right now, I think are really, really great. Boosting the ISO, okay? Opening the aperture value and just using the candlelight. You could have done that here in this situation. But I do think from a critique standpoint, it's overlit. The candles there are completely washed out from overlighting this image with flash. And, you know, it's a little bit tight, but I can get by that. But again, I think it's just overlit. And also the light is very flat. Try to get the light off the camera's plane with off-camera light. So I think obviously a lovely moment here at a wedding. You know, if I'm being critiquey and kind of picky, we have a lot of distracting, you know, the chairs and whatnot. I'm almost inclined to think, what if you got a really, you know, I see you have a 200mm lens, you know, what if we did that almost vertical? Okay. I think that's kind of cool too, but anticipation, reaction, exposed well, we could do some burning and dodging. We could bring this area down, bring this area down, bring that shirt down back here. And I even do think that the faces are a little bit hot, the hands a little hot. So now I'm getting a little bit picky, and now I'm talking about really refining our images. Refining, what do I mean by refining? Some burning, some dodging, some retouching, some photo finishing, if you will. And learning how to do simple layer adjustments. Just use an adjustment layer, take the levels down, okay, and do a layer mask, and then with a history brush, paint back what you need to paint back and leave the other areas a little bit on the darker side. That way, my eye wouldn't be going all over the place here and here and here where all these hot spots are, because this right here is what's so beautiful about this picture. And whoever did this picture, they caught it, you got it. This is really what's supposed to take place here, and you nailed it. But a lot of the extraneous elements are taking my eye away from that. Cool, very cool. I mean, The parents must love this. By the way, I know I can tell there's a watermark below. I'm not looking at that watermark because I don't want to be biased. If I know this person, I do not believe I've ever seen this image before. And if I have seen it, I would tell you. So what do we do right here? Really cool, impactful portrait of this kid. Love the use of the glasses, got an air of mystery to it. I wish I could see the metadata to see what's going on there. So there were deliberate choices made here, deliberate choices to have a black background, deliberate choices to light the jacket, deliberate choices on the sunglasses. I don't know, this is pretty darn cool. I think it's quite good. Watch the hand a little bit here, watch the elbow here. That's being really nitpicky. I think, a little overexposed in this area here, but this is really a fun picture. So we've got, a lot going on here, and rather than, I'll try to use this as sort of a teaching moment here. We've got a lot of things going on, okay? We've got some, some color shifting here, sort of pushing this file a little bit. There's a lot of fringing here, artifacting and whatnot. These vertical lines here are incredibly distracting, as well as these elements here. All of this going through our subject's head don't necessarily work very well. The other thing is, if you have, I don't know if this is a 70 to 200 or a 24 to 70. If this was a 70 to 200, I see no reason why someone didn't pull back and use 200. Okay, you could have isolated the composition a little bit better. This, maybe avoid sticking all these things out of the back of their heads. So for those reasons, the image is giving me a little bit of a hard time. So I understand that whoever made this was trying to utilize these lights, and I applaud the attempt at using those lights. But I think the one thing that I talked about, and if you have a chance, I know it's on YouTube, go to Samy's YouTube. And you can even go to my my Cliff Mautner education page. By the way, Cliff Mautner education on Facebook is free. It's free. There's some pretty decent content on there. And the group is pretty active, and I talk about images I post, and I'll critique some things here and there. But what I like to talk about, and I talked about in the composition class for Sammy's, is seeing three-dimensionally. What do I mean, seeing three-dimensionally? You have foreground, which is right here. You have subject and you have background. Well, in this situation, you have foreground, you have subject. Well, seeing three-dimensionally, I'm seeing, this light on top of this man's head. And to me, that's a, very, very distracting element. You could have photoshopped it out, and maybe, I probably might have done that to give the appearance that these were the lights indeed that were lighting everything else. And it probably is. You probably didn't need this light. So I appreciate a couple things. I appreciate the leading lines going into these subjects. I appreciate the fact that they tried to use natural light. And I even like the pose. I think that they're posed well. But the fact that he's wearing sort of a light hat is a little bit distracting here. But again, it's a sound photograph. Okay, so verticals are tough. Verticals, in a situation like this, it's a nice picture. But so here's what I like about this photograph: the light. I'm a natural light guy. I'm a window light guy. So whoever shot this photograph used this light almost perfectly. Okay, but I really do believe that we can improve upon this photograph tremendously just by doing this right there. So we don't need this area here because my eye goes right to it. So eliminate that window in the left foreground, okay? And then we don't have to put her smack dab in the middle of the frame. we can use some rules of thirds here. And then we can applaud the maker with this lovely use of Rembrandt lighting, which I love so much. I just think this is such a lovely use of this soft light. It's directional. She's facing the camera in a perfect way. It's a nice gesture with the pose. But I do think we can improve it with just a simple crop here. Okay. I wish I had some metadata here. To me, I have no idea what the intent of the maker was here. To me, if the subject is meant to look a little bit stressed, which I think that's the case, and I could be dead wrong, but the lens there is definitely some distortion going on here. The subject's a little bit too close to the camera, depending upon what lens this might be. And, it's throwing me off a little bit. There's a lot of shine on the face. I can see that it was lit basically from right where the camera's plane is. And it's also, in my opinion, a little bit on the tight side, a little bit tight. It's not a head and shoulders, it's more of a face shot. But if you're going to take the time to shoot the face, maybe do a little bit of retouching, watch the little hot spots on the right side of the face, okay? But if this was the intent, then again, I can appreciate that. Okay, so I think in this particular photograph, I think, this bridal party shot, it's an environmental portrait. I like that the bridal party is behind these folks. If it were, I don't want to say if it was my photo. I think what could have been done here, first of all, the colors are off, okay? The colors are definitely just a little bit off here. The skin tones, there's a lot of cyan going on here. I think maybe the green might be throwing things off, perhaps, okay? So the skin tones, are a little bit on the blue side. Now that I've got my glasses on, which I should have had on before, a little bit on the blue side. Maybe the photo in focus earlier it was out of focus. Even the water's kind of blue, stuff's kind of blue. But here's what I like. Look at how the maker placed the bride and the groom in between this tree and this tree, right there. They could have put this tree directly behind the groom or the bride's head, which they didn't, which is a really good conscious decision not to do so. All right. Maybe throwing a little bit of light on them that might have brought the sky down a little bit, but then you'd have the light. These guys, this is a wedding. And man, let me tell you, when you're at a wedding, sometimes you just don't have time to do all this stuff. Not sure if you need all of that. Let's see, what do we got? Maybe something like that. Okay, maybe you don't need all of this ground here. So maybe crop it just a little bit. I think it's a nice photo. I think the couple's going to love this, and I think it really adds a sense of place. So it's nicely done. Maybe a little more gesture between the bride and groom and not so posed. If you're going for kind of a noir look from sort of a 1962 Life magazine ad, I think you nailed it. This is kind of cool because I think, I'm just going to guess, this was probably the intent. This is a commercial photograph, if you will. And I think it's pretty cool. I like the treatment of the photograph. This could be an advertisement for, I'm really grasping here, but this could be like an advertisement for Tang. If Tang were still a thing, if whatever she had in that glass were orange, and there'd be like a bottle of Tang on here. But I don't know what this can be a commercial for, given that I have no idea what the context, the attempt is being given here. I don't know what it is. But
I think you just showed your age, Cliff, by saying Tang.
I know, brother, right? Hey, listen, my grandmother used to drink Tang, and so did the astronauts. The Apollo missions had Tang.
Yeah,
yes, I did. I showed my ass. People, young photographers out there are like, Did this guy just mention Tang? What the hell is he talking about? So anyway, I think that's, I think it's kind of a cool image. Very, very Rockwell-like, don't you think, Pete? I think it's kind of cool.
Very much so.
Yeah. You know, I like what's going on here. I think it was a nice attempt at the use of the light. It's a little bit on the harsher side for me, but you know what? When we're in wedding conditions and, you know, we're trying to make the best of a situation, you know, I think this is a pretty solid photograph that this person made in a, you know, sort of a gritty scenario. And I bet this couple used this for their album. And I think it's pretty solid. You know, some of, you know, the shadows going through the head, I know it was all deliberate. The placement of the bride, I think, was also deliberate. And I think that they did the best that they could in getting the face lit. It's a little harsh. It's a little unflattering for her. But again, I think it's a nice graphic, industrial type of feel. And I do kind of like it. So I do, let's see. So I'm going to just say it because it's an opinion. I just don't think a 35 millimeter lens is the right lens for a photograph like this. I don't know if it's terribly flattering. This is a very attractive woman. You know, I'll say this. Whoever shot it knows their way around lighting. It's nicely lit. I don't know what the intent was, whether it was for a headshot or if it's just a portrait. I'm not really sure. You know, perhaps if the maker could have gotten a little bit higher. So I do see a lot of neck and a lot of chin and a lot of, you know, under here, if you will. You know, I think the prominent part of this photograph, mainly because of the lens, the most prominent part is right here. And I'm not certain that this woman, if she really would want that, quite honestly. So again, I'm not trying to offend, I'm trying to educate. And perhaps a different lens, and maybe you get a little bit higher plane of view. But otherwise, nice light, attractive subject, and there's a lot right with this photograph. But I do think if the attempt was to flatter the subject, I think it could have been improved. You know, once again, I think this was an opportunity missed. I'm just going to say it. I think this is a nice picture. I'm not sure if we need to have them smack dab in the middle of the frame. You know, perhaps if you know, we had a different angle here that had these sort of leading into them, and we see these in the background and sort of compressed it a little bit, and maybe not used a 50 millimeter lens. I think a 50 millimeter lens is fine in certain situations. Now, all that said, I'm sure the couple liked the picture. I'm sure that people might say, what's wrong with this picture? Nothing's wrong with this picture. My job here as someone giving critiques is how can this photograph get better? And I'm saying it can get better if the subject wasn't in the center of the frame so prominently, and if we use the elements to our advantage as elements of composition instead of just elements of content. And I think it could have been improved in that sense. That said, it's a perfectly lovely photograph that they're going to use in their album, and I think they're going to be happy. They've also done a nice job of balancing the light, as opposed to the photograph we saw a little bit earlier, where we can see here, we can see the lovely candlelight. The candlelight is not overpowered by the flash, and whatever light source they are using, whether it's flash or continuous or whatever, is not overpowering the candlelight. And it's a nice balance. So whoever did this has nice skill. I just wish they could have done more with this particular situation. All right. Awesome. Pete, some questions before I kind of rip my own self apart a little bit?
No questions. We are good. Continue.
Good. Okay. So I'm going to head over to a couple of these that I've done and, you know, sort of show a little bit of what makes these things right or wrong or what have you. This just won best for in-camera artistry. It won first place at WPPI in I believe it was the first half competition. And I would like to sort of put my money where my mouth is by saying, if I had placed this subject smack dab in the center of the frame, I wouldn't have given her any room to look out. Okay. So I made a conscious decision to place her in that right side of the frame. And that's sort of why, you know, this image was probably stood out in the judge's eyes. You know, an image like this, there was a deliberate effort in putting him in the center, but he's still not in the center of the frame. He is in the lower third of the frame. And I tried to use the compositional elements of the background, the city, that's the sun beating off the water. He is lit by a mag box with a 200 watt second light. And again, off camera light. So I do like this picture. It's one of my favorites that I shot last year when I was doing a 780 campaign. And I think it's strong only because I was able to get that reflection of the sun. And then the other attempt that I made was to not get his head touching the horizon line of the water. That would have been a huge error. So this was just shot this past Saturday. And my mistake here, you know, my mistake here was not perhaps raising my camera just a little bit. I think this is a little bit distracting. I know I'm being picky. So in the end, what I'm probably going to have to wind up doing is sort of cropping that area out here. Okay, he's in tears there. And then the tendrils here. There's nothing we can do about that. So it was a really, really windy day. And if you notice, there's another thing that I'm kicking myself about, and that is I cut her hands off at the bottom. Really, really, really bad on my part. I screwed that up. So a couple things here. Number one, clean your sensors. My studio manager is going to give me a hard time. I've got a sensor spot here. I've got a sensor spot here. I've got a sensor spot here, here, and here. So I'm sorry, Heather, in advance. So what I kind of did right, I think, I balanced the sun and the silhouette, but damn if I don't think that this fence going through them is incredibly distracting. But I wanted to show that there are certain times there ain't nothing we can do about situations like that. And also, I must have asked our bride, if I asked her 20 times, I asked her once to take her hair and pull it out of her face. I have not completed the silhouette properly because the hair is not out of the face. I'll probably still include this in the cull, but I wish I had improved on that. Oldie but goodie, conscious decision in composing this image like that. This was back in my composition class where I wanted to point out, if you hadn't seen that class, that I made a very conscious decision to make sure that this couple was placed just below the horizon line there so that they're not blending in with the trees all the way across the water. If they had been, this would be a terrible picture. And then I like to say one man's empty space is another man's composition. I liked the light coming in from the left, and I liked the empty space on the right. And then one more time, very, very careful to allow myself a little bit of space here and not have her head come all the way up like that. All right. So let's see here. Pete, would you like me to pick a winner?
I would like that. I think everybody else here would like that too.
All righty. I am going to go with this portrait right there. This is
Oh,
beautiful.
you stopped sharing your screen though.
I did, didn't I? Thank you. Sorry about that, brother. I'm going with this portrait.
Okay.
So I wish I had metadata, but I don't. I have no idea who shot it. It's presented beautifully. It's got context. It's got grit. It's got impact. Beautiful light, beautiful texture, beautiful dimension. Even just the wrinkles in the sleeves and the shirt have dimension to it. I don't know. This is really, really well done. So there you have it, Pete.
Awesome. Well, that was Jonathan Betts, who's actually in the chat under Buffalo John at the moment. So that was his photo. And Jonathan, I have your email from the Google form submission, so I will be emailing you to get your mailing address. So be on the lookout for an email from me, and I will send you our SanDisk SSD. So congrats there.
So cool. All right.
And now we'll do the raffle winner as well. Let's see, I put your names into a randomizer during this. All right, and so the winner was Lori Santoro. So congrats, Lori. If you want to, before everybody leaves, I just got to make sure I get Lori's email. So Lori, in the chat, select my name and give me your email. Don't put it to everyone because I don't want, you giving your email address to everyone. But if you can throw me your email into the chat, I will reach out to you to get your mailing address and ship you this drive as well. So Lori, you have won our My Passport Wireless SSD as well. All right.
Cool.
So thank you, Cliff, for the wonderful advice. And oh, I did get Lori's email. She was fast. Most people are not that fast. So we are good there. All right.
I do want to mention this drive right here. I have a 2013 MacBook Pro that I'm working with right here. I know it's old, but it still works. And the reason it still works is I got an SSD on this years ago. I had the foresight. I downloaded somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it was 60 to 6,500 images from a 2-day South Asian wedding. I backed up, okay, after the download on this drive in under a half hour. Ridiculous. Everything, all of it. And I think it took about 18 to 20 minutes on this drive. That's ridiculous. So thank you for that.
All right. Oh, I guess some people are having some audio issues or whatnot, but I was hearing you. Somebody just said they couldn't hear you, but I can hear you. So I'm hoping everybody else heard you.
Oh, wow. I hope so.
That was just a one-time thing there, but
well, then they can watch it. They can watch it on YouTube.
Yep. So this will be posted on Sammy's YouTube page shortly thereafter. I think Rui will upload it and send everybody who registered an email with the link and more information. For all of you, I am going to be putting my email address into the chat now for two reasons. One, if you have any questions or comments or anything about the event, feel free to email me. If you have any questions about products, you can email me. I'm definitely available to help you guys figure out what the right hard drive, right SSD, right memory card is for you. Please do reach out, put my email in your contacts, reach out 6 months from now, whenever you're going to buy your next product or whatnot. So, please, utilize me as a contact. And Cliff, you want to share your social media as well? I know that,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, well, my Instagram is just Cliff Mautner, the way I spell my name. My Facebook, again, Cliff Mautner Education is free, absolutely free. And yeah, there you go.
All right. Looks good. I'm just scrolling through the chat real quick to see if we got a lot of good comments. People really enjoyed this. They were really grateful for the commentary. Some of them were talking about how this was their first critique anywhere. So they were pleased with this. And yeah, so you guys can reach out to Cliff on his social media as well. You can email me as well, and we'll get your questions answered. So thank you guys for coming. We do a lot of events like this, not just critiques, but we'll have Cliff back and he'll teach some workshops. He'll teach some photography techniques and seminars. So keep your ears peeled on Sammy's mailing list and look out for future events with us. All right.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Sandisk. Thank you, Sammy's. And thank you for everybody that was on here and took the time to submit some images for us. Thank you very much.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.